Do Christians have a duty to disobey an unlawful government? I had a very interesting conversation with a pastor who says that is a Christian duty, to disobey an unlawful government. I want to talk about that tonight with Daryl Day. I also want to talk about what happened at Gitmo. The co-conspirators, they're not being tried again after 5 years. And also, I'd like to talk about this income inequality nonsense with Daryl Day in just a minute. Pull up a chair and join us. Had an interesting conversation with a pastor, a good friend of mine, named Pastor Chris Hall. I call him JC. And he was talking to me about the Christian duty to disobey an unlawful government. And it's kind of counterintuitive if you think about it. I often hear Christians talk about, you've got to abide by the law of the land, give unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and that sort of thing. But let's talk about that right now with Daryl Day. Daryl, thanks for being with us again. Appreciate it. Right. What are your thoughts on this? Did you hear Pastor Chris Hall?
I heard some of it. I think a Christian's duty is obviously to follow God's laws first, and then man's law after that. But as far as being angry and taking a stand, if you use Jesus Christ as an example, he threw a bunch of folks out of the temple area because they had turned it into nothing more than just a wild sideshow. Mm-hmm. So we see someone who was angry, but he had a righteous anger. I think it's okay for Christians to be angry as long as they're angry for cause. Mm. Now, if you get angry and you have no cause, you're just a mad person, I don't believe that you'll find favor with God if you do that. But being angry justly, there's a time for it.
And I think it's a very, very interesting question because natural law, the way that our founders set this up in the Declaration of Independence, it states that rights are unalienable. We are born, they are inherent in our humanity, and they come from our Creator. And government doesn't have rights, it only has the powers that we give it. So the question is really even more interesting when you think about it, because Pastor Chris Hall says it's not even really a Christian's duty to disobey an unlawful government as it is a Christian's duty to obey God's law. And when God's law, nature's law, and contradicts with government, who are you supposed to follow? We're going to talk about that with Daryl Day in a minute. I also want to talk about that cattle ranch standoff. It's not over, and it may not be for a long time. What are the long-term consequences going to be? Back with Daryl Day in just a minute. The Burnie Thompson Show Whiskey Rebellion is brought to you by Gulf Imaging. Have your doctor refer you to the #1 diagnostic facility in Bay County for MRIs, CAT scans, and digital mammographs. Gulf Imaging, Open MRI. Waterstone Apartments. Each home includes a full-size washer and dryer, spacious walk-in closets, and high-end appliances. Waterstone Apartments on North Jenks in Panama City. Bay Dental Center. If you've been putting off going to a dentist because your teeth are in bad shape, let my dentist take care of you. Dr. Colias at baydentalcenter.com.
Gerard Verga fights for justice every day. As a family man who grew up in our community, Mr. Verga wants to bring those values back to our justice system. Vote Verga on August 26th. Political ad paid for and approved by Gerard Verga for judge.
Hi, I'm Jay.
And I'm Katie.
Is your check engine light on?
At Gears, we will check it for free.
Don't pay for diagnostics.
At Gears, we will check it for free.
Transmission services for $49.95.
Free shuttle service in our Gears limo.
Come let my daddy fix your car.
Find out what's shaking at Lowe's House of Bourbon at the Shrimp Boat Restaurant. Lowe's House of Bourbon, located above the Shrimp Boat Restaurant in historic St. Andrews.
Hi, I'm Daryl Day.
And I'm Burnie Thompson.
You know, we both proudly served our nation in uniform.
And we still serve today on the radio, expanding freedom and protecting the family budget.
And using the airwaves to educate, enlighten, and entertain, and sometimes irritate.
So join us every day and link arms, and let's do our part to restore this republic.
Join me each morning, Monday through Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
And join me from 11 to 2 on Talk Radio 101. Pastor Chris Hall and I had an extended conversation that I wanted to bring here with Daryl Day and with you, and I want to get your answer. If you'll email me, do you agree, and why? Do Christians have a duty to disobey an unlawful government? I'll give you some examples that Pastor Hall gave me. He talked about the Pharaoh and his order to kill baby boys, and the whole story of Moses in Exodus. Well, those women, they didn't do that, and they disobeyed the executive order, if you will, coming down from Pharaoh. Now, who were they supposed to mind, if you will? God's law or Pharaoh's law? There are lots of examples. As a matter of fact, Daryl, he gave biblical examples of nullification. Mm-hmm. He pointed to Daniel, famous for Daniel in the lion's den, and he had a bunch of pupils, and I think it was King Nebuchadnezzar said, you know, there are
everyone's going to bow.
Yeah, everyone's going to bow, and also there were laws about diet, what you can eat. Pastor Hall joked around and he said, you know, if the first lady, the Pharaoh's first lady, was going to tell them what they could eat too, but no, he didn't. He wouldn't do that, and he paid a price for that.
That's right.
Let's talk about when it is proper for us not to obey the government.
Well, you have to, for a man to be godly, in my opinion, and I believe the Bible would even back this up, is you have to protect your family. It is your responsibility. What happens to your family is your responsibility. Because a lot of people, and I hear Christians say this all the time, you know, wait a minute, you're supposed to turn the other cheek. Well, if you're responsible for a family, your family, that turning the other cheek can get old pretty quickly, especially if you take it to the point where you're actually removed as the protector of your family. And the same thing goes, if it works for the family, why wouldn't it work for your country?
Right.
Why wouldn't you be able to stand in defense of a threat to your country, a threat to your freedom, and a threat to the freedom and liberties of your family? Isn't it the same thing? I don't have a problem with it. I believe that a Christian has, like J.C. Hall would say, not only the right but the duty to stand for freedom and liberty.
You know, I am not the most religious man in the world, but I certainly believe that our Creator, the same God who gave us life, gave us liberty at the same time, as Thomas Jefferson said. And it's my opinion that we please God to the extent that we resist evil and that we do good. And for a government to become so powerful that they lord over us, to have another man lord over us, is wrong on every count, in my opinion. And I certainly agree with Pastor Hall that good people have a duty to disobey an unlawful government, a government that is run amok, because no man has the right to lord over another man. You know, another interesting thing, Daryl, he makes the argument that that a Christian government, or Christian people would have a government, rather, that is secular, like we set up. I'm a big believer in having a religious people, but a secular government. And the government is based on the values, to be sure, of the Judeo-Christian ethic. But if you take a look at this, he says that if, let's say, you oppose gambling, he says that it would be a Christian's duty to argue against it, not to call in the government with the crushing force. He says that's not godly. He says that we should use the gospel instead of government. He says when you start calling on the government to control other people's behavior, that becomes idolatrous. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, that you would point everything towards the government. How happy do you think God is with German Christians during the 1930s in Germany, when 6 million Jews were executed? How happy do you think he is? Do you think a kind and loving and a just God would have been a bit happy, perhaps, if the Christians had have stood, those that had the wherewithal, had stood against the Third Reich and kept 6 million innocent Jewish folks from being executed? We abort 4,000 babies a day in the United States of America. How can we...
50 million maybe since Roe v. Wade?
Since Roe v. Wade, over 50 million children didn't make it out of the womb in the United States of America. Most, I think 62% of those were young black children. And who stands for them? Who protects them? And they are the most vulnerable of all. And so as a Christian, we are to stand by and allow that to happen? No, I think the church in America is one of the reasons that we've gotten to the point where we have. It's lawlessness, and sometimes it takes a law that's greater than man's law to make sure man's law is kept.
You know, I think it's very interesting, don't you? When people call on the government to make us a better society, isn't that borderline idolatry? And by the way, I'm going to make a new documentary, and I'm calling on Democrats to apply for the documentary. I want to chronicle your life. Here's going to be the documentary that I want to make. It's going to be called From Partisanship to Idolatry, the story of a Democrat. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be intimate. And I want to chronicle your great leap forward when you used to be a civil libertarian, but now you're not. When you used to be against crony capitalism, and now you're not. When you used to be for peace, and now you're not. I want to find out how it is that you, Democrat, went from your allegiance to the party and to civil liberties to your allegiance to one man. You know, Daryl, I really believe that Barack Obama could give the 1964 speech by Ronald Reagan, A Time for Choosing, and if the words came out of Obama's mouth, I believe Democrats would be nincompoop bobbleheads and cheer. Is there anything he can say or do that they won't support?
I don't know. Reverend Al Sharpton just said that we should be celebrating the resurrection of Barack Obama because of his crucifixion of his political...
Oh, my.
Yeah, this Sunday that we should pause and celebrate the resurrection of the man, Barack Obama.
When I talk about the transition from allegiance to party, to the Democrat Party, to idolatry, do you see what I'm talking about? And I want to know. Email me below, and I want to get as many Democrats who want to be the face of Democrats. I want to make you famous. I know Democrats love celebrity. From partisanship to idolatry, the story of a Democrat. It's going to be beautiful. We'll be right back.
The Burnie Thompson Show Whiskey Rebellion is brought to you by Gulf Imaging. Have your doctor refer you to the #1 diagnostic facility in Bay County for MRIs, CAT scans, and digital mammographs. Gulf Imaging, Open MRI. Waterstone Apartments. Each home includes a full-size washer and dryer, spacious walk-in closets, and high-end appliances. Waterstone Apartments on North Jenks in Panama City. Bay Dental Center. If you've been putting off going to a dentist because your teeth are in bad shape, let my dentist take care of you. Dr. Colias at baydentalcenter.com.
Hi, I'm Jay.
And I'm Katie. At Gears, we're proud to offer you a complete transmission service starting at $49.95.
We also offer free shuttle service in our Gears limo.
Lifetime warranties?
Transmission services for $49.95.
Come let my daddy fix your car.
Gerard Verga wants to bring decency, fairness, and justice back to our courts. On August 26th, vote Verga for judge. Political ad paid for and approved by Gerard Verga for judge.
Find out what's shaking at Lowe's House of Bourbon at the Shrimp Boat Restaurant. Lowe's House of Bourbon, located above the Shrimp Boat Restaurant in historic St. Andrews.
Let's expand freedom and protect the family budget. You and me, right here every week. And if you like what we're doing, drop me a line at myfreedomradio.com. That's where you can email me and let me know your thoughts. On The Burnie Thompson Show, a Gears production. You may have seen the big standoff between the cattle rancher and the supporters and the federal government. The federal government's pretty ticked off. They want that land and they are energized. Boy, I've never seen the federal government. So when they have their heart set, when they're determined to do something, boy, they'll go send 200 agents and surround an American because there is the tragedy taking place in Nevada. There is a desert tortoise that's being threatened. So you got to send 200 armed agents. But you know what happened? They didn't expect this. But Americans, if you ever ask, why do you need an AR-15? Did you see what happened in Nevada? Americans armed came and stood and resisted the threats of force against Americans over a desert tortoise. And what do we get for that? After the federal government backed off, the federal government, Harry Reid, the leader of the Senate, said it's not over. And then he called Americans terrorists. Darrell Day? Domestic terrorists.
Right.
But listen, they let 68,000 illegal aliens who committed crimes. They apprehended 68,000 illegal aliens who committed crimes, and then they let them go. Catch and release. But I'll tell you what, if you're a cattle rancher and there is a desert tortoise, they can be pretty serious about that. Don't you think we got our priorities upside down?
Yeah, the Bureau of Land Management came along years ago and were going to help the ranchers manage the property that they were grazing their cattle on. And they would come up with good ideas like, it would be great if you had a water source. And the ranchers would say, well, we have a water source. We drilled a well and we've got a big tank. And it would be nice if you had some corrals and if you protected this area because you want to be sure that's somewhat of a pristine area. That would be a good idea. And the rancher said, yeah, that would be a good idea. We already have it. Since the BLM has pulled out, they have drilled holes in the bottom of the water tanks, they've pulled fences down, and they've pretty much left litter everywhere they were. Now, I've always said to the question, why should a citizen have a 30-round magazine? Because the government has a 30-round magazine.
That's exactly right.
And there, at no point in this country's history should the civilian ever be outgunned by the military or by the government, more specifically the government.
That's exactly right. And to have the federal government call Americans domestic terrorists, that is, you've had Vice President Joe Biden. He's called us barbarians at the gate. Right. Congresswoman Maxine Waters has called Americans, she said Tea parties need to go straight to hell.
Straight to hell.
And she intends to help them get there. And now we've got the leader of the Senate, Darrell, calling Americans domestic terrorists. Now I look at the National Defense Authorization Act that they've put together that says that the federal government has the authority to detain Americans they deem to be terrorists without due process. This is all coming together in a very dangerous way, I believe.
Yeah, that is so unbelievably unconstitutional. And look, we want to get the terrorists too.
Absolutely.
I don't think any American doesn't want the terrorists gotten. But to trample the Constitution in order to do it, we can Dick Tracy those folks. We can investigate and we can go to a judge and we can get a subpoena to search if necessary, as long as someone's willing to sign an oath or an affirmation. And in those few cases where a terrorist is about to mash the plunger on a bomb, if you have to take him out without a court case, I think just like any criminal you would do, if a criminal had a bomb strapped to him and it wasn't for ideological purposes, he was simply going to try to blow a safe up or something, you have every right to shoot him if he's about to hurt a lot of people. But to detain an American citizen, no matter how despicable that American citizen may be, is wholly unconstitutional. And either we have a constitution or we don't. We can't kind of have a constitution.
Yeah. Do you ever get the feeling that the federal government has taken the Patriot Act and they're really not going after Muhammad? Don't look at me. That was one of the terrorist names who crashed into the Twin Towers, Muhammad. Do you know that all of the domestic spying that is taking place on American citizens now, under this administration, under Barack Obama, who built a political career as a civil libertarian, now he is Tricky Dick Tracy, He's spying on every American. He's spying on the Congress. He's spying on leaders across the world. He's spying on the Pope. Democrats, how is it that you went from being civil libertarians to supporting this kind of totalitarian surveillance? Where did you go? Daryl, I'm just calling on people to be Americans. Forget Democrat, Republican. Right. It's unbelievable that people are supporting this.
Our enemies hate us because we're free. That's the number one reason they hate us. They hate us because we have a Constitution that protects minority rights. And to show them how tough we are to fight them, the first thing we do is destroy our Constitution. To me, that's absurd, and I don't understand it. And I don't understand how men and women can even get to that point where they're able to say, in order to preserve the Constitution, we must destroy the Constitution.
Right.
And that we've heard that before. It was an old saying in Vietnam. We had to destroy the village in order to save it.
George W. Bush said that he's going to break free market principles to save the free market.
That is gobbledygook.
It is absolutely a non sequitur. It is Bolshevik is what it is. Now, Daryl, do you ever get the feeling, and it was wrong when Bush did it? Can you say that?
It was wrong when George Bush did it.
It was wrong when Bush did it.
Any president
That's right. See how easy that is when your allegiance is not to political party but to the truth. Try it. It's wrong when Bush did it. It's wrong when Obama does it. It's easy. If your allegiance is to the truth and to freedom and to the supreme law of the land that protects you and me from the threats that we face largely from the government. And now we have a federal government led by Harry Reid and Barack Obama and even Speaker John Boehner. Do you know Speaker John Boehner called Edward Snowden a traitor? Edward Snowden has been accused of espionage. He is the young man, 8 years old, who put his life and liberty on the line to tell the American people that the federal government were breaking the laws, spying on us. You know what espionage is? Espionage is when you give secrets, government secrets, to the enemy. What did Edward Snowden do? He gave the American people the knowledge that our own government was spying on us. That's not espionage. Espionage is something else altogether. He told us that the federal government is breaking its own laws. Back with Daryl Day in just a second.
The Burnie Thompson Show Whiskey Rebellion is brought to you by Gulf Imaging. Have your doctor refer you to the #1 diagnostic facility in Bay County for MRIs, CAT scans, and digital mammographs. Gulf Imaging, Open MRI. Waterstone Apartments. Each home includes a full-size washer and dryer, spacious walk-in closets, and high-end appliances. Waterstone Apartments on North Jenks in Panama City. Bay Dental Center. If you've been putting off going to a dentist because your teeth are in bad shape, let my dentist take care of you. Dr. Callias at baydentalcenter.com.
Find out what's shaking at Lowe's House of Bourbon at the Shrimp Boat Restaurant. Lowe's House of Bourbon, located above the Shrimp Boat Restaurant in historic St. Andrews.
Gerard Verga wants to bring decency, fairness, and justice back to our courts. On August 26th, vote Verga for Judge. Political ad paid for and approved by Gerard Verga for Judge.
If you need your car worked on, take it where I get my car worked on. Gears Transmissions. Whether it's your engine, your brakes, or a $49 transmission special, Gears Transmissions will take care of you. And you know you're never going to get upsold. You're never going to get swindled. And you'll get to meet my friend Jay, my good friend Jay, who, by the way, if you like what we're doing here on the Whiskey Rebellion, this is part of Gears Productions. Gears Transmissions you can find online at gearstransmissions.com or in Panama City near the mall, just about a mile up 231 toward Interstate 10. On your left, it's right by the Dollar General. With all the challenges we're facing in America, do you know that our President Barack Obama spent 4 weeks in a row with his weekly address to the American people addressing income inequality. Daryl, what in the world is income inequality?
I don't know what it is, but I think I have it. I've always felt that my income was unequal to what I was worth.
It is certainly unequal to others.
Well,
isn't that how it's supposed to be?
I don't know. I'm grappling with the words. What does that mean, income? If you had two people that had worked since their birth as hard as, both had worked the same amount, both had gone to the same schools, both had the same work ethic, both showed up at work at the time, and one was making, for some reason, twice as much or a little bit more than the other one, that you might be able to convince me in that one particular case there was income inequality. But until you get motivation equality, you will always have income inequality.
Yeah, I'll tell you what Barack Obama does when he does this. He stirs up envy. And what we're doing is going away from a merit-based society where dollars are earned. Let's think about what a wage is. A wage is simply the amount you can sell your labor for. That's what a wage is. And you can sell your labor for what you're worth in the marketplace. And nobody can say that you're worth more than that any more than they can say that that toaster that you want to sell at your yard sale is still worth $20. You can't do that. And Daryl, what about this nonsense about making an economy that works for women? He acts like the economy is a maid. And when he's done, women will kick their feet up on the couch and have a remote control because the economy works for them. What is that about?
Well, you know, first of all, a savvy businessman would never pay someone less than what they were worth. You would take the risk of losing that employee to your competition.
They'll go somewhere else.
If you had a free market, a true free market, where the person across the street could say, you know, I went over there to Daryl's Diner, and there was a waitress over there, and customers come there just to see her. Right. I would do everything I could to get that waitress to work for me. You know, the free market, there will always be some inequality, but it'll go both ways.
Yeah.
Sometimes it may follow a path that you may for a moment go, wait a minute, maybe it shouldn't, but it'll work itself out if you leave it alone.
Right. You know what the president does is he stirs up envy. He says the reason you're not doing well is because somebody else is taking advantage of you. You know, he says that women make 77 cents on a dollar. Actually, that's not true when you factor in time worked, when you factor in how many hours are worked, when you factor in the type of job you have. There are a lot of factors he's not taking into account. I'm Burnie Thompson. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.
The Burnie Thompson Show Whiskey Rebellion is brought to you by Gulf Imaging. Have your doctor refer you to the #1 diagnostic facility in Bay County for MRIs, CAT scans, and digital mammographs. Gulf Imaging, Open MRI. Waterstone Apartments. Each home includes a full-size washer and dryer, spacious walk-in closets, and high-end appliances. Waterstone Apartments on North Jenks in Panama City. Bay Dental Center. If you've been putting off going to a dentist because your teeth are in bad shape, let my dentist take care of you. Dr. Callias at baydentalcenter.com.